Today I'm going to talk about immigration leadership and how certain leadership traits come about as a direct result of economic hardship an individual faces. As everyone in this room knows, the United States is facing a difficult economic situation, with unemployment being above 9% over the past 18 months. Currently, the unemployment rate sits at 9.6%. We are approaching 2 years of difficult times, but we are not alone. Many other countries are in the midst of their own economic crisis and unemployment challenges. Back in May of 1993, I graduated college with my undergraduate degree. Unfortunately for me, I graduated near the last unemployment peak on the graph shown. When I graduated, the unemployment rate was 7.1%, and it took me 9 long, desperate months before I was able to land a job in my field. Move ahead 17 years, and today's graduates have to contend with almost a 10% unemployment rate. And let's not forget the diverse and talented labor pool that already exists and those who are no longer counted in the unemployment figures. Yes, these are difficult times. People want jobs, people need jobs. Fixing the economic situation here and around the globe is about providing jobs, but not just any job. The solution is creating jobs locally that go beyond providing the bare minimum for survival. Our needs are more than just food, shelter, clothing. Minimum wage jobs won't provide for a family. Outside the U.S., other countries have similar difficulties, especially the ones not providing unemployment compensation. Some can wait for our leaders to stimulate the economy and provide these jobs over the next few years. Most people cannot wait. Their own survival depends on it. A roof over their head, food in their stomach, clothes on their back. Foreclosures are at an all-time high these past few years and will continue to remain high. There's no easy solution. We can't wait for our elected and appointed leaders to solve all our problems. We must step up to the plate and do our part. We must become a leader. Each of us, get out of survival mode and think outside the box. We must look beyond our horizon in this global economy. Yes, desperate times calls for desperate measures. We have a global issue here, and looking outside our own borders, we can shine a light on what other countries are doing about their economic hardship. First up is Ireland, a small island nation with a population of 4.2 million. They have a labor force of roughly 2.2 million, which translates somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 65% of those able to work working. But with 11.8% unemployment, Ireland has a serious issue. That issue was recently broadcast on NPR's Morning Edition, stating that the poor economy is forcing many of the Irish to find work outside their own border. It is estimated that 100,000 people will emigrate over the next year. This represents 2.4% of the country's population. Desperation indeed. This migration trend isn't just Ireland, and it really isn't that new. Looking into the situation a little deeper, I sought to find out what are the top 3 countries people migrate from. Doing a little research, I came up with a top 3 list. China, with 35 million people migrating, is number 1. That represents 2.6% of their population. India is second in population, and it is number 2 with 20 million people migrating. And that represents 1.7% of their population. I think these two are pretty obvious to most of us. Surprisingly, a country that is 12th in terms of population made the list. That is the Philippines. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 million people have migrated from their homeland, although some estimates put this figure higher at around 10 to 12 million. That 7 million migrating represents 7.2% of the country's population. So in terms of percentage, population migrating to other countries, the Filipino people are world leaders. The bad news about all this migration is that countries are losing citizens, many educated, to other nations. This can result in a brain drain, in broken families, and reduce overall productivity of the country's economy. When jobs and opportunities are not there, this is what can happen. People will step up and migrate for better opportunities. China is a good example of having lost a generation of great minds. With their past decade of growth and the economic crisis, they are slowly starting to draw some of those immigrants back. Since I'm so intrigued by the Philippines, and of course it doesn't hurt that my wife is from there, I decided to investigate a little bit more on their migration patterns. The Philippines is a country in terms of population percentage, migrating to other countries for what turns out to be job opportunities. When we look closely at the country with 100 million, we note the following statistics. 38 million labor force translates to 60% working population when you include everybody greater than the age of 15 years. In the US, we are around 62%. The current unemployment rate, at least what is tracked, is relatively low at 7.5%. Reading further, the real problem bubbles to the surface. It's 32.9% of the people living below poverty line. In comparison, here in the US, we are at 14.3% as of 2009, and we think that is high. Contributing to this poverty rate is the average family income in 2006 of $3,925. That is just over $300 a month for a family. In the Philippines, most employees can earn somewhere between $100 to $300 a month, and this includes professions like nurses. So jobs in the Philippines do exist, but the pay only provides for basic survivability. It would be like having most jobs here in the US paying minimum wage. So throw in a bad economy, lack of good paying jobs, and poverty, and there are not many options. The Filipino who has big dreams must step up and become a leader. That's good news. The good news is the government has several agencies to help those interested in migrating. The bad news is the government is helping. I say this only because the leaders of the Philippines are not stepping up their effort to promote more jobs in their country and increase the wages. Those migrating Filipinos are called overseas Filipino workers. They are proud people, and their country is even more proud as it reaps the $17.3 billion, that is US dollars, that are remitted back to the homeland by all the OFWs and Filipino citizens all over the world. That is 5% of the Philippine economy. So where are all the overseas Filipino workers going? Well, the top 5 countries, according to the Philippine Overseas Employment Agency in 2009, are Saudi Arabia, UAE, Hong Kong, Qatar, and Singapore. And workers include service, production, professional, sales, caregivers, domestic helpers. Statistically, there are more males, 53%, than females, 47%. With the help of my wife and Facebook, I was able to get feedback from 10 OFWs from around the world on their experience in migrating. My answer to the question, why did you decide to emigrate from the Philippines, would seem obvious, and sure enough, it was. Responses were fairly similar across the board. Career growth, opportunities to earn more money, to save money for the future, better benefits, helping younger siblings experience living in another country. Bottom line is the job opportunities abroad provide a much better financial benefit, some of which can be remitted back to support their families in the Philippines. For the process, many use a government organization. Some work through cousins, family members, and others use an agency. Costs range from nothing out of pocket to almost $5,000 for a Filipino going to Canada. The benefits concentrate on the monetary side with improved salary, 3 times to 7 times what they make in the Philippines, work, medical benefits, seeing other countries, building friends, and living independently. When I asked everyone if they would do it again, I got 9 yeses and 1 maybe or no. This surprised me because most OFWs are unable to go back home for 2 to 3 years of service during their agreement. So they're out of touch with the families for quite a while. And no one complained about the work, the difficult work, or the possible lack of time off. Then again, I didn't ask questions about that subject. The Filipino people are an innovative bunch. They create jobs where none exist. The same innovation and determination has created a whole slew of agencies and jobs around Filipinos who choose to migrate. And so it is with those few who do choose not to wait and become their own leader, I present to you my top 3 leadership traits for the overseas Filipino workers. Number 1 is risk takers. With great risk comes great rewards, and perhaps no one knows that better than the OFWs. It takes a lot of courage to leave their country and family behind, especially when there are no guarantees of a good life in the host country. Lest we forget about the cultural differences, especially in a country like Saudi Arabia. Though most is regulated through the government agencies, there are suspect recruiters out there resulting in illegal recruitment and trafficking and prostitution. Even with proper placement, a worker might become abused by their employer. There may be little chance of escape due to the high cost of quitting and going back home, the opportunity for the risk taker. Number 2 is sacrifice. The broken relationships of one's family and country are the sacrifice one has to make. When OFWs leave, they may not return for 2 to 3 years. Their family will be older, their kids grown, and they may lose their marriage partner to indiscretion. No one gets those years back. As with all great causes, sacrifice is a must amongst leaders. Change agents. Leaders enact change not only in their own lives, but in the lives of their followers. The OFWs don't wait for change, they make change in their own lives. Opportunities pursued abroad lead to greater opportunities back home for their family, not just for moms and dads, but daughters, cousins, nieces, sons, daughters, nephews. The money remitted back to the Philippines helps support the whole economy. Without this vision to dream big of these change agents providing for their families, the Philippines might be closer to a 50% poverty level. Risk-taking, sacrifice, and being a change agent are the key leadership characteristics we find in those emigrating to other countries. And having said that, I wondered what might be the solution to curbing migration. It isn't that migration is bad. It is that given the same opportunity in one's own country, it is highly unlikely that they would migrate elsewhere. So I came up with the top 3. Number 1 is job creation. And this falls on the government and corporations stepping up and investing in their country, some of which can be infrastructure rebuilding. Because until wages rise and poverty decreases, this trend will continue. The second solution is the returning immigrant leaders. They are change agents before, and they can be change agents again when they return and invest in their own country, perhaps through starting a new business. They need to help out their fellow countrymen. And yes, more sacrifice is required. And finally, though I may ruffle some feathers here, outsourcing of jobs can be good for a country that become the recipient of these outsourced jobs. Case in point is the call center jobs going to the Philippines. These are well-paid jobs and have allowed many of those who have considered emigrating from the Philippines to stay put. Anytime jobs are outsourced, think about those places receiving those jobs. Somebody is being helped, and maybe more than us. A good wage in the U.S. may help a couple people. A good wage in a poor country helps several generations. In concluding, I ask myself, are we seeing a growing trend? I think we are, especially in our current global economic crisis. And do I think we will see emigration from the U.S.? Well, that really depends on our poverty rate. At 14%, and the fact that we don't have many places to go that pay as high of a wage, we are at a bit of a loss in this country for migrating. But I wouldn't be surprised if we lose some immigrants who came into this land of opportunity for better opportunity in their own homeland.